All right, hello everybody. So here we are, and this is part two of our Unit 1A Replicate project, part two. Okay, so today we're going to do a couple things. So you should have this Google Doc opened up. Last week or last time in our lesson, last thing we did was we added the audio source. We created an empty child. Okay, we created an empty game object. Sorry, not a child, but an empty game object. Okay, and we renamed it to Game Manager. Okay, and we added an audio component. All right, and then we attached the explosion to that audio component. Okay, so if you didn't do that last time, I'll do it real quick and see how that works. And we got to make sure to uncheck play on awake, okay? And then we're going to add a script to our game object. So make sure you've opened your project, okay? Minimize that. Let's go to our project here. So game manager, I'm going to add that audio component. That's what we did last time, an audio source. Okay, and then we clicked up here, and with the assets tab selected, we clicked on our explosion. All right, okay. Want to hear what that sounds like? You can click on your assets right there and highlight the explosion, and there's the sound. All right, okay. All right, so let's click on our assets tab. Okay, let's select our game manager, and we are going to add a component. Okay, so we are right here. We're going to click on our game manager, and then in the inspector window, we're going to add a component. Okay, I'm going to put a little comma right here. Okay. Click on your game manager, and then in the inspector window, click add component, and you're going to do a new script. Okay, let's do that. We're going to call it the game manager script. Okay, so in Unity, again, I got my game manager selected. I'm going to add a component. I see new script down there. If you don't, you can just get rid of your search. You click down here, click on new script, and we're going to call that game manager script. Okay, create and add. Okay, all right, so now we see this game manager script up here in the assets folder. Okay, and we see it attached in the inspector window to our game manager object. Okay, next step. Okay, so we did that. We're going to open up the grayed out script box to open this up in Writer. Okay, so let's open this up in Writer. So a couple ways to do this. Again, you can double click right here in this grayed out box, or you can just double click here. I just like double clicking in the asset window. Okay, and Writer will open up. You'll get this message, do you want to trust? We're going to trust it and open. And here we go. I'm going to minimize this. And don't worry about these messages. You can just close them. Okay, and again, here's our default game or game manager script. Anytime we create a script in Unity, this is how it starts off. Okay, it uses these three things always: system collections, generic, and Unity engine. We see the class name of game manager script. Again, that's the title we gave it, and we have void start and void update. Okay, so if I go back down to my browser here, remember, anything inside void start will only run one time when the game is first played. Anything in void update will run over and over again for so many cycles. Okay, it just really depends, like we said last time, it depends on your frame rate. So it runs once per frame. Okay, so it could be run 60 times per second, or it could run less or more. Okay. All right, when a line starts with these two forward slashes, it's called a comment. Okay, it's called a comment. So if we look in our right here, there's a comment. Okay, it says start is called before the first frame update. Now we're going to use comments to describe what we're doing in our script. Okay. It's kind of like your notes. Writing comments is going to help others and yourself understand the code that you're writing. Okay, so we're going to be sure to make comments. Okay, so here's how everything should look when we start it up. All right, looks just like that. So now we're going to take the step and we are going to add some variables. Okay, and we're going to add two variables. They're going to be game objects. Okay, so we're going to add a game object called bomb and a game object called explosions prefab. Okay, so we've created two variables. We're going to create two variables that are of type game object. Okay, all variables have a type. Okay, that type is right after public. It's a game object type. So you want to think of variables as containers, like boxes, for components or data or objects. Okay, one will be named bomb, and one will be named explosion prefab. Later, this is just what we call declaring variables. Later, we're going to initialize them. What that means is we're going to put something inside them. So you'll see in a later step, we'll plug in or assign the actual game objects into these variables. All right, so let's go ahead and do this. Public game object bomb and public game object explosion prefab. So we go here, we create our variables right in the start. Actually, we're going to create these variables just above start. Okay, just above start. So we're going to initialize them right after this first curly bracket here, right underneath our class. Okay, so let's go here. All right, we could actually just put our cursor there, hit enter a couple times, and let's do this. Public, notice the word comes up, public, and this is going to be a game object, type game object. So public game object, notice I type GAM, I can just hit tab. Okay, and first one is called bomb, semicolon. Okay, notice there's no red lines. I'm looking pretty good there. Public game object bomb. Notice our variable names always begin with a lowercase letter. Okay, that's the classic convention there. And you don't forget your semicolon. At the end of every line, semicolons are kind of the same as a period in a sentence. Without this, you'll have what we call a run-on sentence in your code, which your computer won't be able to understand and will misread it as something else and it'll result in errors. Okay, so we need another game object. It's an explosion prefab. So let's go ahead and create that. We can hit enter. Public, like that game object. Explosion prefab, I believe. Explosion prefab. Okay, so let's go back here. Explosion prefab. Okay, so there's our second variable. Explosion prefab. Ideally, we're going to store the object bomb we just created in there, and here we're going to store an explosion prefab, so the bomb exploding eventually. Okay. All right. So again, variables are containers of information. This information can either be something like a string, which is a collection of characters, like in the Hello World program we did last week, or it could be an integer or something specific to Unity, like a game object. Okay. If you see any red squiggly lines underneath your code, you know there is an error. So for instance, if I went in here and say I forgot a semicolon, right? You see, I got that error right there. And if I highlight on this, it says unexpected token. Name explosion prefab does not match a rule. Okay, so we need to go over here and put that back in. Okay. Let's see what else we're going to do here. Okay, well, now what we want to do is we want to have a conditional. And this conditional is what we've been talking about, is we want to say that if we press the space bar, we want to destroy our bomb. Okay, so we're going to type this code in right here, and it's going to go in the void update. Why? Because as we're searching, or as the computer is checking so many frames per second, we want to always be checking if the space bar is pressed, and if it is pressed, we're going to use this command destroy. Okay, and we always got to be aware that certain things like missing parentheses, bracket, or semicolon can result in whole parts of or entirely of the script having red squiggly lines, even if the other parts are correct. So we got to make sure we got all these things in here. All right, so let's go do that. If, so we go down here, all right, if parenthesis, and we want something called get key down. So input dot get key down. Okay, get key down. Okay, input dot get key down lets the computer know that a key has been pressed down. Okay, so it's checking to see if a key has been pressed. Key code is a specific key being pressed, and of course dot space is the space. So let's do this. If input dot get key down input dot get, you can see right there I can just select get key down. If I see it, there it is, get key down. I'm just going to double click on that. So if get key down, we need the key code, and you see you got lots of different key codes here. You can scroll down if you want till you find space. It's alphabetical, or you could just type it in. Okay, so if input dot get key down key code dot space. So right here we're checking for the space. Now notice I got a little squiggly line there, a little red squiggly line, and I got this message. Returns true during the frame. The user starts pressing down the key identified by the key code. Okay, so what I have to do now is add a couple curly brackets, and I have to give the command destroy bomb. So the command destroy destructs a specified game object. Okay, how does it know? Well, because we defined it in our variable as a game object, bomb. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. So we're going to go down here. Okay, see we got the squiggly red line. So we're just going to go right there. We're going to press enter. We're going to press a left curly bracket. Notice to appear, and if I press enter, then I got my space right there. Okay, so we are going to destroy. Capital D, notice destroy comes right up. Okay, and what are we going to destroy? We're going to destroy our, if I type a B, notice bomb, it recognizes we have a bomb variable, that's a game object. So I'm just going to press tab and destroy bomb. Okay, notice I have no red squiggly line, so I'm looking good. Okay, all right, and we should just say that whatever inside of the if statements, curly brackets, is the y. In other words, think of it as math. Think of it as if x happens, then y happens, right? If this is the case, we press the space bar, then we want to destroy the bomb. Okay. And also, you saw this variable, which is a prefab. Okay, or basically we called it a prefab. Game object explosion prefab. What is a prefab? Well, prefabs are prefabricated or pre-made assets that can be copied and reused. So we can bring them into our code. We can bring these objects in there, and we can bring them out. Okay. All right. So now it's time to save the script with Control S. Okay, and head back into Unity and wait for it to load. Now, the great thing about Writer is you can just click in Unity, and it'll automatically save your script. Well, it's already done it in mine. Matter of fact, if I click on Game Manager, you see my Game Manager script. You see it's already updated. But it's always a good practice to press Save All or Control S. Okay, because Well, if you're using Visual Studio Code, it doesn't automatically save. All right. So here we go. Here's our script, right? It should look like this. Script, game manager script. So let's make sure we have this. Okay, script, game manager script. This is the game manager. Let's go here. Let's select game manager. Game manager script. Script. It has it right in there. Okay. All right. So what's next? As we previously mentioned, this is where we're going to assign our bomb variable. And we'll assign the explosion prefab in the next replicate. This will be probably next week or so. And in general, when assigning things into these variables, they must equal the variable's type. Okay, so the variable's type is a game object. For instance, our bomb variable must take in a game object from the scene. It can technically take in any game object we have, but we've named it bomb. Since we're going to assign bomb, the bomb game object, that's already in the scene. The name technically doesn't matter, but they should make sense. Okay, we want to name variables so they make sense. So in Unity, if we select Game Manager, we want this bomb to be our bomb game object. So we can just click this button, and we see we have an Assets button, we have a Scene button. So we want the game object from our scene, right? This is our scene, and we want the bomb there. Okay, the bomb, and then we can close it. So now bomb is selected as the game object from our script. Okay, looking good so far. All right, let's go back to our instructions. We've done that. Okay, now we're going to click. Well, we just did this. We clicked on the little circle and we attached bomb. Okay, so bomb is now selected in our game scene. At this point, it's probably a good idea to be in here and to be in your Unity and just save. Control S. You can hit Control S or just save. Just make sure everything's saved. Get that back up. Okay. And now we're going to press the play button. And that by this time, our bomb should disappear when you press the space bar. So let's go test this. Okay. So if I press play, okay. Uh-oh. What happened? Did you hear that sound? Aha, I'm going to press play again and stop this. What did I forget to do? When I added this audio source, I had play on awake. So I'm going to deselect that. Okay. And we're going to start this again. Okay, now you hear no sound. So right now it's checking if I press my space bar, and when I do, notice the bomb disappears. That's exactly what we wanted. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and stop this program. Okay, and that's what your program should be doing at this point. Okay, so at this point, you've finished the first step. Okay, the first steps, and this project is ready to be turned in, this Replicate1 assignment. You finished all the required steps. However, before we talk about exporting our, we want to export this package because we're going to turn it in the next lesson. Okay, what we're going to do after that is we are going to, this is how everything should look. We are going to, tomorrow or the next day, we're going to see if we can figure out how to do these stretch goals. Okay, but for now, this lesson is done. So we are going to export the assets so they can be turned in. Okay, and we've done this once. Let's do it again. So back in Unity, you want to Control S. You want to save, right? Just make sure everything is saved. Okay, in the project window, we're going to find the folder that says Scenes. Okay, we're going to double click on it. And if your original sample scene is still there, you're going to delete it. Now, it shouldn't be there because we renamed our scene. Okay, so if I go here and I click Scenes, the only thing I should see is the one with your name on it. Okay, Scenes, your first name, last name, underscore, Unit 1A Replicate. So that should be the only one there. But if by chance you didn't rename it, now's the time to do it. And make sure there's no other scenes in there, okay? All right. So now we're going to click on assets. Assets. Now, before we click on the assets up here and we export the package, very important step is to make sure assets is selected there. Here's why. If I just select scenes and I go to assets, export package. Okay, let me get that window over here. All right. Sometimes it doesn't select everything. Notice how long this list is. Okay. So I'm not going to close this window. I'm going to select assets. Then I'm going to select export package. Now when I do that, you'll see this list has grown quite a bit. Okay. So I want the whole deal, the whole shebang. Okay. I want all this stuff. So make sure you have assets selected before you click export. Okay. So let's export this. Export. Okay. All right. It's going to ask you where you want to do it. It's already in my folder is already selected. Right. Here's my desktop folder, Unit 1, and there's my project. Okay. But just in case you need to find that, remember it's desktop, your folder on your desktop, Unit 1, and then right in your Unit 1A Replicate project. Okay. So we're going to export this. The name we're going to give it is the exact same name. So I'm going to just do Anthony Barba. Oops, Barba. Notice how it automatically wants me to do this. I can click on that if I want, okay? But I don't want that .sln. I can get rid of that. I just want this name right here. Okay, this is going to be a Unity package. And I'm going to click Save. Save. Okay. So if I go into my desktop folder, again, here's your folder. You got this folder menu down here. Bring this over so you can see it. Okay. It's going behind me. You should now see a couple things. You should see this asset right here that you just created, a Unity package file. And you also have your asset file you put in there to get all the other assets. This is the one we're going to turn in the next lesson. So just make sure it's there because in the next lesson you are going to want it to turn it in. All right. Okay. So we are ready. We go back to our project here. We've done the export job. Okay. We've named it correctly. Okay. And everything was exported because we first clicked the assets folder in the project window. Okay. All right. We're not going to do this part yet because it's in the next lesson. But in the next lesson, we need to do a screen recording too. Actually, we could do the screen recording now. Okay. You remember how to do that, right? You got to press your record button. So in case you need a refresher on screen recording, we'll do that last step right now, okay, just to show you how to do it, because you might want to get that ready too. Actually, no, we're not going to do it now because we'll do this in the next lesson because we'll just save it for there, okay? But let's take a summary real quick. Your hierarchy should look like this, okay? But not saying sample scene. It should have your name, main camera, bomb, game manager. Okay. Your game manager should look like this in the inspector. It should have audio source and a game manager script with the bomb attached to bomb. So if I go here, oops. There it is. Of course, you got a transform menu too, or transform component. There it is, game manager script attached and the bomb. Play on awake is not selected. Okay. Your script should look like that. You should have two variables created, and if the space bar is pressed, destroy bomb. Okay, these are our first commands we've learned. Our first conditional. Okay, so game manager script should look like this. Okay, with your variables. All right. And if you have any issues, there are some common issues. Maybe there are no boxes under my game manager script in the inspector. Okay. Another issue might be you started typing things like destroy or game object and you didn't get a menu with suggestions for autocomplete, okay, you should, just like I did. Maybe you pressed your space bomb and your space bar and your bomb didn't disappear, okay? So you got to make sure if you're not getting messages about when you press the tab to autocomplete, make sure you set up your external editor and API compatibility level. I don't need to worry about the API, but you do have to make sure that in Unity, and we did this before, we got to make sure that under preferences, okay, oops, let me bring them over. We need to make sure under preferences, external tools, that Rider is selected, okay? If you're using this at home, it'd be Visual Studio, but you need to make sure Rider is selected, okay? And then these first two bars should be checked, okay? This is how you get the autocomplete in Rider, okay? So you want to make sure that's always checked. What else? What is this message? Let's just go over here, okay? And if you press the space bar but your bomb didn't disappear, make sure you've saved your script. How do you make sure it's saved? Well, this is your script. You can press Control S, but when you click on it from your Assets tab, you should see the updated script with the variables and if input.getKeyDown, keycode.space, that's pressed, destroy bomb, okay? What else? What else? That's it. Okay, so our next lesson, 1.4a, we are going to see if you can figure out how to do some of these stretch goals on your own, okay? You might even do more than these. You could have some fun. Here's some important vocabulary we should all know. Asset folder, right? Asset folder, that's this folder right here, contains all assets, scenes, Unity assets that we've imported with a whole bunch of different assets here. Some particle systems, cross-platform editor, a bunch of stuff. We'll talk about how to use some of that stuff in the next lesson. Audio clip, this is any kind of source, a sound file that can be played by Unity. An audio source is a component used to play an audio clip. A component is just a part or a piece that goes onto a game object. Again, and these are our game objects, and we can add all kinds of components. We got all kinds of stuff we can add. Okay, that's a component. Comment, things written in your code that are used as notes. They are written by putting in two comments or two forward slashes. And we're going to add some comments in the next lesson because we're going to add on to this. Game window. The Unity window where the game can be played and tested. What window is that? Well, we can click on it right here. This is what our game window looks like. And when we press play, it automatically goes to that window. Hierarchy window. This is the Unity window that lists all the game objects present in the scene. Here's our hierarchy window. These are all our game objects. Okay. If statement, code used to determine whether or not a certain condition was met. We learned about input.getKeyDown. This is used in an if statement to check if a button was just pressed on the keyboard. We have the inspector window, which when this game object is selected, it displays all the components attached to that game object. Okay. Prefab. We didn't use that yet, but we will learn how to use it. Those are just pre-made assets that can be copied and reused, like coins, power-ups, health potions, enemies, all kinds of things. Our project window, okay, that's down here. This is where all of our files can be seen, and this is where we can get messages from the console. Okay, you can always clear it by just pressing clear. All right. We got the scene window. That's the scene window right here. Scene. This is where we're designing everything. Okay. We have script. That's an asset that contains code instructions for the game to run in play mode. So that is right here. If we click on our assets, scripts will appear right there at the top. Okay. Transform. This is a component that is in every game object, which determines where the game object's position, rotation, and scale is. Ooh, wasn't that one of the extensions? So if we look at the bomb, right, that's the position. We can rotate it, and scale is how big it is. Okay? And then a Unity package. This is a collection of assets, scripts, and scenes which can be used to import or export assets between Unity projects. And again, all these assets can be made into a package by clicking the assets, by exporting them to turn them in, or importing them in to bring them into a Unity project. Okay, this is kind of if you're working from home, you're going to be doing a lot of this. Okay, because you'd have to import a package. In other words, import the last status of your game package you were working on in class, right? And if you're working on it at home, you got to export it. And then when you come back to school, you'd have to import it again. That's how you work between two different instances of Unity. You have to keep importing and exporting packages. All right, that's it, guys. So we will turn this in the next lesson. Show you how to do that. Just make sure in your project or in your make sure in your desktop folder you need to make sure you have this Unit 1A replicate. Okay. Matter of fact, let's call this Replicate1. I'm gonna just rename this to Replicate1 because we're gonna extend this. Okay, so I'm just going to call that Replicate1 because we're going to have a Replicate2. I probably overlooked that in the instructions. Maybe I did, maybe I didn't. Okay, let's see. No, they didn't say Replicate1, but it should. Okay, it should. Replicate1. Okay. All right, there we go. Hope this helps, and we'll see you in the next lesson.